As everyone's trickling in, welcome. Welcome. I know we're getting closer and closer to the end. I hope you all have been learning a lot. Again, we're just gonna kind of keep letting people trickle in. We look forward to seeing you. I can't wait. We just got done kind of hearing a little bit of some of the stories you all are in for a good treat, and being able to hear some very, very powerful stories today from our student panel here. I want to just go ahead and again introduce Cristina Castillo. She's from Siu Carbondale, and she'll go ahead and introduce the panel, and she'll be moderating and answering all those questions. So, Cristina, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, Alejandro. Muchísimas gracias, and absolutely right. Actually, I'm going to let the students to introduce themselves. I think that they're already prepared to do so.
I can go first if that's all right. My name is Juan Contreras. I'm starting this upcoming fall. I'm going to be starting my second and final year at Southern Illinois University. I am majoring in automotive technology, and I'm very excited to be finishing up in college. I was about 2 or 3 years old when I came to the US. So I was pretty young when I came to the US.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Daisy Rodriguez. I am majoring in radiologic sciences with a focus on diagnostic medical sonography and a minor in healthcare management. I will be starting my fourth year, my senior year at SIU this upcoming semester. And I was born in Honduras, and I was 7 years old when I came to the United States.
I can go next. Hello, everyone. My name is Marta Sornio. I'm starting my third year in the Masters of Fine Arts program here at SIU in the sculpture department. I will be starting my thesis next year. So, and I also did my undergrad here. So I'm a second time alumni. I was about 2 years old when I first came to the United States, and I'm originally from Mexico.
Hello, everybody. My name is Vianney Sanchez. I'm an English major with a pre-professional specialization for pre-law. I'm in my senior year here at SIU, and on top of that, I'm a DACA recipient as I came to the US at about 4 years old from Mexico, and I've lived here ever since.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the introductions to the public, whoever is listening and viewing us. This group of students are one of the most, I'm privileged to know them. And I'm even choking a little bit because it's amazing. And I just seeing them grow and with the tenacity that they have and the resilience, they are role models, examples for all of us. And I cannot be more happy for all of them and their successes. So we're going to continue. We're going to start with the questions. So in no particular order, you can just unmute and answer, okay? Tell us about, the first question is, tell us about when you found out you were undocumented person and were faced with college plans, who helped you or informed you that college was a possibility for you.
I'll go first, I guess. I have always known that I was undocumented, and I think it's because I was 7 years old. So I remember the trip here. So my parents didn't really have to necessarily like tell me later on in life. Like I've always known, of course, because I was so young, I didn't quite understand what undocumented meant, but I knew that I was very different than everybody else. My parents always kind of made that very clear. And always encouraged me to do, better, to do the absolute best. For that same reason, college has always been in kind of like my plan. My parents always instilled that on me from a very young age. I don't think I have a particular time where I kind of realized I could go to college. I kind of always just looked it up. Like if I had any questions, I didn't really have people around me that I could ask because there were not a lot of undocumented immigrants like around me, or I at least at that time did not feel comfortable talking about it. So I would always look these things up in line, and I would see that it was a possibility. It wasn't until my senior year of high school I had this like college readiness class, and although my teacher was not at all really prepared to inform me, she did not have any information, didn't really know much about it, she was extremely helpful in at least getting like finding out information, reaching out to people that could potentially know. And she got me in contact with quite a few people that knew a little bit more about it and were able to kind of like help me and guide me through the process. But it was, even then, it was still hard because a lot of it I had to do by myself. Yeah.
So I can go next if you guys would like. So I found out that I was undocumented when I was in middle school. You know, I was still around in maybe like around 5th through 8th grade. Around that time, I kind of started to realize that things were a little different, especially in high school. You know, kind of starting. I kind of always knew, but I didn't really fully know what that meant. I think when it really kicked in is when my friends started getting their driver's license and stuff, and I like really couldn't figure out why I couldn't at first. And then I was like, oh, and then the dots started to align. And then I realized how kind of I don't know that and even before that, you know, I was very discouraged about school and college and things like that, because once I kind of started, you know, realizing that there was things that I wasn't going to be able to do because of a lack of, you know, documentation. I you know, I grew up here. I felt like I was from here. And then when I started feeling different, it really dismotivated me. And I gave very little importance to school because of this. It was just so much emotional weight that it was hard to, you know, it felt like I was living a fake life and that I was having to hide something. And I didn't want to go to college, but my parents brought my sister and I here. They sacrificed everything that they did and leaving their family behind and leaving everything behind with the hopes that my sister and I would be able to get higher education and hopefully get jobs in which we won't have to, you know, aren't as physical as what our parents have had to do our entire lives. So they always kind of pushed for it. And, you know, as I got older, I realized that, that, you know, this is something that my parents wanted to do, but I was still discouraged because I knew that it was going to be hard for me. So I think what helped a lot, the people who helped me get into school and helped me continue my education and really motivate me and show me that it was possible, was the communities around me. And it was mainly my church community, but also a nonprofit organization called the Micah Project, or the Mika Project, here in St. Louis. And these people, like, it blew my mind to see how these people were coming together to help people like me. And seeing that there was other people like me really opened my eyes as well to the possibility. So really it was the community around me and people like you guys who are willing to listen right now and listen to our stories and fight for us. That's really the reason that my hopes were picked up for me. And then once I was able to get into, you know, once I started seeing that the possibilities were there, you know, things got better. But really, DACA changed my life. DACA gave me hope, and it gave me a reason to try, and it just like brought so much like change in my life and something that I needed. And you know, it's just, you know, being undocumented is, you know, it's basically all about paper. You know, it's all about having, you know, documentation and things like that, but it's so much more. It carries emotional weight, and it's, you know, it really changes the way that you feel. So that's how I got into school. You know, it's really the community that came together to help me and show me that it was a possibility.
I like to go next. I knew I was undocumented as well, like my peers from a very early age. Actually, as far back as I can remember, I knew that my immigration status was a very polarizing situation. And therefore, you know, I was always told not to speak about it outside of the household for fear of consequences or retribution. But it wasn't until I had to start thinking about college that it really began to affect me, because I hear stories of many undocumented kids, students who never went to college because they feared persecution, or their parents had a fear of ICE raids away from home. I also heard that, undocumented students couldn't go to college. But then of course came the DACA program, and that opened up a lot of doors, not only for families like mine, but just both undocumented and some the people who are eligible, sorry, for DACA. And then all of a sudden, the Latino media, news, and all the things we watch were depicting all of these success stories. And I think by seeing that type of representation in the media, it just gives us all like another sense of encouragement, or that a brighter future is attainable. So in a way, you could say that this representation is what kind of informed me that the things that I wanted to reach, the goals that I wanted to see myself fulfilling, were possible.
For me, I think I really understood that I was undocumented because I wanted to go to high school, to a private school, and I wanted to go into one of the Catholic school networks in Chicago. And I didn't have a social security number, and you needed a social security number in order to be able to work, to help pay for your tuition. And I kind of knew that at that point that was sort of an obstacle and what it meant. And so early on, right out of the gate at like 8th grade, I kind of knew what that obstacle looked like. But then coming to college and making the decision to continue my education became a whole nother trajectory, a whole other journey that I never imagined that would lead me to be here and get my master's. There was a lot of struggles with financial assistance. I do remember the people that helped me, and like Juan said, community being one of them. I did get a lot of help from Chicago's non-for-profit Fiesta del Sol, who awards scholarships to undocumented students like myself. And back then, when I was applying for college, DACA wasn't a thing. And so my option was to go to community college. And I had great counselors in high school that are still, that I still keep in touch, that I'm still grateful that they were able to guide me and give me those resources and recommendations, because we didn't have DACA at that time. And so going to school, even community college, meant that I had to pay everything out of pocket. And so not only my community was there that was able to guide me and help me with those resources, maybe through scholarships or just writing a resume, writing applications for scholarships, but then my family as well, because I think my family never gave up. And I know that they have struggled a lot to be able to make it here and survive and continue to live in the United States. But it is because of them that they just never gave up on me, and I'm still here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Very, very powerful testimony of your resilience and the support that you have had in order to be here at this level of in your higher education. Now, let me ask you, what has been one of the most difficult or frustrating things you have faced as you navigate higher education as an undocumented person or student?
I'd like to go first because I feel that I have probably an extended amount of things that I can say. But one of the primary things that was a big hurdle for me was not having the financial assistance, and also not having the grades. Like, there is this idea that DACA students have these perfect grades, or these undocumented students have resilience. And sometimes there are some of us who just kind of get by, and you know, we don't know what we want to do or where we want to go. But for me, at least, I kind of knew what I wanted to do right out of high school, and what college I wanted to go. But again, like, the thing that I always got told was that I didn't have the grades, or that I didn't have the test scores. And so those obstacles kind of narrowed down my choices of where I could go. And so I decided to go to community college. That was something that I was advised to help me financially to be able to afford it, and then transfer to a 4-year university. And so when I did make it to a 4-year university, and when I did come to SIU, there was that other hurdle that was even greater, that I didn't even imagine how much of a struggle it was going to be for me, not only financially, but also emotionally, was finding scholarships and financial assistance that could help me pay for school. And so I know that I try to reach out to all my networks once I was here to help me finish paying that debt. But I think money is always kind of the big thing that I have always felt. And then also just emotionally, I think emotionally we're living with this trauma of being told that we can't do this and we can't go here, and that these are the people that are not going to let you get there. And I think that trauma that is instilled at a very early age, kind of like Daisy said, just being told at an early start, is just kind of something we carry with us until the point where we get here and we still don't know, what we're doing or how to navigate once we get here.
I think for me, one of the biggest obstacles, being in school and kind of one of the hardest things to navigate, kind of to piggyback off what Martha was saying, is definitely financial and the admissions process. I think at first, the hardest part for me has always been having to walk into the admissions office and kind of explain my situation and be like, hey, do I enroll as a foreign exchange student? Do I enroll as an in-state? Do I enroll as out of state? Like, first of all, it's like, there's so many different things that we have to figure out what I fall under. And then when they're like, so do you have a student visa? Do you have this and that? And I'm like, no, I have a, work authorization. And they're like, oh, but you're going to school. And then I have to explain the situation, which isn't a bad thing. Obviously that's not the problem. The problem is I feel like a burden when I tell somebody that I'm a DACA student and then they don't know how to react to that. And they have to go and do research just to figure out, like, I feel like I'm adding workload to somebody's day. And I feel like I'm an inconvenience by having to ask for that or by telling them that. And then they have to figure out how to, do the enrollment based off of that. So that's been kind of like an embarrassing, bigger obstacle for me. But the biggest thing has been financial. Again, walking into a financial office and explaining to them the situation and just asking for help. I think every college, the community college I went to, and as well as here at SIU, trying to figure out kind of what I can do to pay for things and where I can get the funding has been the hardest part. Luckily, I've been able to receive support from private organizations and scholarships for this past year. But I haven't figured out what I'm going to do for next year yet. And, although these scholarships are available and things like that, not only are they awarded, based out of selection and merit, but also, it does take a lot of work. And I feel like finding these scholarships is almost a full-time job on its own, So I think that has been the hardest thing to navigate, is figuring out how to pay for college without having government-backed financial aid, without getting ridiculously high interest loans, and trying to pay for it out of pocket and work and be able to study at the same time. So, and it's very discouraging to think about all that, because it seems like two little problems, but it becomes something that it becomes very time consuming, and something that it's like you get going through that process. I had the door closed in my face so many times just because I didn't meet whatever requirements or didn't have the right documentation, and it gets to a point where it's so hard to get back up and to try again. But we have to keep pushing. And I think something that Martha said, or I don't know if it was BNA, is that it's like it really takes its toll, just kind of having to keep pushing forward. And people, I feel like because we're DACA, people expect us to have this extra level of resilience and this extra, thick skin. And although we do, because we've been swimming upstream our entire lives, we're still human, and we still have our ups and downs and the days where, it's really hard to keep pushing forward.
So bridging a little bit on top of what Juan and Marta already said, I'd also like to take a look at the sort of the transition that takes place from high school to college, because that was pretty difficult for me. But like I said, I was lucky enough to receive the DACA temporary protection, but I was still very uncertain about what my college prospects were going to be like. And when I had to open up about it to my high school counselors, they were incredibly unfamiliar with the DACA program and DACA students in general, and B, they didn't know which step to take or who exactly should reach out to. So in conclusion, they really weren't able to give me the counsel that I needed. And so I was like left with little other choice but just to turn to whatever online resources that I could find, like United We Dream, and other websites like that provide some sort of understanding of, what my path would be like to higher education. So I found that my worries were, valid, because while citizenship status alone on the federal level doesn't exactly bar you from attending university, there are still certain states in the past that have barred undocumented students from attending public university institutions, which is honestly wild. And here's looking at South Carolina and currently still Alabama. But thankfully, Illinois is not on this list, so the in-state university search was definitely better for me. And even with these options narrowed, the college search was still pretty stressful. The feeling of having, no safe in-person resources to turn to was frustrating. Being from a very small town, that's sort of kind of like the result, the culmination of living in a smaller community. But after a majority of the process had been completed, finally I applied and was accepted. And then came the biggest hurdle, which for everyone I think is usually financial aid, because we have no idea how to go and apply for that or what category we fit into. But what made this whole process a lot easier was being able to find a resource center at the university that I applied to, and thinking, okay, after all this turmoil, I think I finally see a first step to at least combating this one issue. And so being able to reach out to the Hispanic Latino Resource Center at SIU was like the saving grace. Like somebody was waving a flag, and I was like, okay, let's go there first. And I think they'll have the answers to my questions. And they usually did. And if they didn't, it was fantastic that they would always try their best to find somebody else who would be able to do that. So.
All right, so for me, the most frustrating or difficult thing I've had to navigate as an undocumented student in my pursuit of higher education has been the uncertainty on whether I would be able to complete my program. Fortunately, I received multiple scholarships that was able to pay basically my 4 years. So I have not had to worry about financial issues as many of my peers have. But for me, my program requires students in their last year, so their senior year, to do a clinical semester, well, 2 clinical semesters, fall and spring. And in order to do that, many of these clinic sites, like hospitals, require background checks. And I was told from the very beginning, when I first applied to the program, my spring semester of freshman year, that I most likely would not be able to complete this program because I did not have a social security. And for me, although they kept saying, I doubt you will be able to finish, I didn't hear a no. So in not hearing a no, I was like, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it, because my parents were always like, they instilled that in me. And I'm a very positive minded person. And I'm like, things will work out, and I have faith, and I will make it happen. And so I took the risk. But of course, that weighed very heavily on me, because I had to constantly worry about that. Every single time that my teacher spoke about clinic sites and the entire process, it was very daunting for me, because I knew that every other girl there was all right. They weren't worried about whether they would, pass the background check. And of course, I wasn't worried about passing it. It was more about whether they would even accept it without a social security number. I had multiple meetings with both my teachers, program administrators, and just trying to figure out if the department would even allow me to continue in the program. Of course, they left it up to me. And then I remember it was my junior year. So my fall semester, my junior year. So last semester, we had pretty much a very long talk with the dean of my department, and they basically stated that the school wouldn't give me a problem, but then it would be up to the hospital, which for me, once again, I was like, well, that's not a no, so I'm gonna go for it. And my biggest concern last year, my sophomore year, they actually gave me a no. Sophomore year, they gave me a no, and I was like, well, I'm gonna fight for it. And I remember I went to Christina's office, And I was like, hey, like, this is the issue. And like always, you know, she's extremely welcoming with open arms, and she's always trying to figure out like how to help you out. So I had multiple meetings with her trying to figure out what I could do. And we just kept on going back and forth with my teachers as well. And I remember last year when I sat for this conference, I had no idea whether I would be able to do it or not. They had told me no, and I was trying to figure out the entire gist of it. But thankfully things worked out, and I will most likely be able to finish the program. I contacted the like background check companies that will be kind of working with my program, and they said there wasn't no issue. I've been in contact with like the hospitals and clinic sites, and you know, continuously with my program directors, and of course with the law that they passed. I don't know the name quite well, but I feel like that is another thing on top of that that will be able to help me out. But yeah, I would most definitely say that, I guess with all of that, my mental health definitely took a big toll, because it was so draining having to keep up all of that hard work, and like they say, you know, that resilience, and just having to, of course, like worry about my schoolwork and my ranking, and on top of all of that, the constant meetings and back and forth. But thankfully everything seems to be working out. And I couldn't be happier, honestly.
Yes, it's the bill that it's going to allow you to get background checks with your IT number. So, and you talk about the resilience, but about the burden and the sense of the mental health. And yes, all of that plays a big role in your identity, in who you are. Not to mention the rhetoric and the negativity around the issues of immigration. But nevertheless, you're here. Marta, you're about to start your third year of master's. Juan, about to start an internship with Toyota, and Daisy about to do her clinicals and ranking one of the top of the class, and Vianney about to graduate in December, a semester early, and going into law school. So the resilience is it's obviously tangible, even though it's difficult. You, as Juan said, you're swimming upstream, but those muscles, you have exercised them pretty well. So let me ask you another question. So what has been one of the most important things that have helped you in college? Simple as that.
So I think one of the most important things that have helped me in college, that it's the same thing that has helped me my entire life, and it just changes wherever I go, but it's the community. And I think that it really comes down to the community and having a support system and having people there who are willing to fight for you and who are showing you that, you know, so people who understand, people who are willing to listen, and people who are willing to fight. And especially the people who have a voice or have a stronger voice. You know, we all have a voice, but the people who have influence, and to see that level, that people on that level come together to help us, it is so inspiring. And it makes me, you know, it makes me work even harder to honor that hard work that they are putting in for us, because, you know, it's people aren't doing this out of self-interest, you know, a lot of times, and there's not much to gain for them, but they're helping us. And to see people come together, and to see how people like Christina and all the other staff at SIU that has, you know, come together to really reinforce the diversity and to support us as a minority, it's what keeps me together more than anything, is feeling at home and feeling welcome. Because I think that's the hardest part about being undocumented, is not feeling welcome. And to have people there that are welcoming you with open arms and fighting for you, that speaks a lot to me. And I think that is what keeps me going more than anything.
Yeah, high school, or should I say community college counselor that I had at Malcolm X Community College in Chicago was sort of my guide and angel while I was transferring and getting to SIU. When I got to SIU for undergrad the first year, Christina wasn't in the position that she is today. And so when I came here and I looked around to look for resources and for help, those things were not in place. And so for the longest that I can remember that Christina arrived and started to work in the position that she's here at the Hispanic Latino Resource Center has been a huge game changer for us students that have been here. And specifically for me, pursuing my undergrad and my master's now, to be able to see the community, like Juan is saying, of students that has helped other students, right? Because we didn't have scholarships for undocumented students back in 2016. We didn't have the amount of attention and dedication to helping our students here on our campus. And so I remember the time where those things weren't in place, and how having that place that we can go to and ask for help, having a Christina on campus or somebody else that is playing the role that Christina here is playing is a huge impact. Not only having someone there that can answer questions about applying for scholarships, when deadlines for graduate school come around, how to apply for loan, for tuition help in the graduate level, but also just having that community and those friends that you can go to, and the people that are here that are there to listen and to guide you and to provide you with just a shoulder to lean on. I think I wouldn't have made it into grad school if it wasn't because I had the support here at SIU, and specifically talking about Christina and other community members. I mean, there is a community here that really care about the students here, at least at SIU. So I'm grateful for them, and I'm grateful for everyone outside of that network, the people back in Chicago, the people that I met while I was in undergrad, because they were also there to help me as well.
For me, the biggest thing that has helped me in college, of course, like I mentioned, was the fact that I got multiple scholarships to cover my tuition. I know that I personally have not had to worry about financial issues, which is amazing, because I know so many peers that, for them, it's so frustrating not knowing how they're going to be able to pay for college. And it breaks my heart, of course, but I'm thankful that I did not have to deal with that it is not something that my parents had to deal with, most especially because now I have a younger brother. He just started his freshman year, and he was not as fortunate as I was. So my parents and him have had to figure out a way on how to pay his tuition. And I know that it would have been so difficult, because college has always been like our plan. My parents have always instilled it, like I said before. And so at that point, they would have had to choose which of their kids would get to continue their education. And that, of course, for a parent would have been the hardest decision ever to make, as they want each of us, to be able to continue getting a higher education. So I'm thankful that that's not something I had to deal with. Another thing that has helped me, of course, like Martha has mentioned, is just finding that community. I was an extremely shy person when I first came into SIU, and I did not have the confidence in myself to be able to say, like, I'm an undocumented immigrant. And I think that seeing that Hispanic community and that support, meeting someone like Christina, you guys have no idea how much help she has been, how influential she has been in my life. I mean, I walked into her office ready to like throw the towel, not want to do absolutely anything. I wanted to drop out because I was like, I can't. I was so discouraged to continue on. And it took me one sitting, her speaking to me and telling me about so many students like me and their success stories. And that just got me motivated to continue on. And like I said, just having that community, people that support you, even if they're not in the same shoes as you, but they're listening to you and they're supporting you and they're your allies. And that is amazing to be able to know that people want you there and that people make you feel welcome, because then I felt like I belonged. And that gave me that sense of confidence that I needed to be able to be the person that I am now, to be able to say, like, I'm undocumented and be proud of it. And then on top of that, be able to help other students kind of overcome that kind of like feeling that they don't belong, that feeling that they can't say or be proud of who they are. So for me, it's just, like I said, financial help, the people around me, Christina, that has been like the biggest help and influences in my life.
So I hope by now we all know the absolute importance of support from faculty and staff, because I'm going to once again reiterate, community has made everything so much better. And like I said, not just the students, but especially the administration, and the higher ups, and that they show their support for us, for our organizations, that they show an interest in our career, and all these other little things that they, just a wave and a hi, and remember my name, things, just small things really do make a difference, and they make the whole experience a little bit better. And also, like Daisy, I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship that would help cover my tuition, and so I felt really proud of that, and I felt like, in a way, it sounds a little funny to say that I would applaud the university for doing that for someone who's DACA, but that shouldn't be, surprising anymore. That should be what they're working towards for a new norm. Because when I set foot in that meeting for the recipients, for like an orientation meeting, I was basically, it was just me, I believe. And they don't tell you this, right? But I believe that it was just me that was like, in the situation. Everybody else around me was either the incoming high school, since I was a transfer student. But what I'm getting at here is that the academic excellence does not have one demographic, and I hope that starts to become the norm.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And it is extremely flattering to hear that I have been that big of a part in your life. But as I said, and as I started at the beginning, it chokes just to think about that. I think that you have been more impactful in my life than I've been in yours. So thank you for the kindness that you're bestowing upon me right now. But you are just amazing. Amazing. And how can I not show the helpfulness and the love? I'm not in your shoes, and still you rise and shine. And if you don't throw the towel, why would I? So thank you, thank you, thank you. So now let me ask you, what would you tell school counselors or educators about supporting undocumented and mixed status household students? What would you tell them that put yourself in that time, high school, or even right now college? What would you tell them that it is needed for them in order to help students like you?
I think so personally, one recommendation that I, would give to school counselors and things like that is kind of how I said earlier, how, a lot of times I felt like a burden bringing up, kind of my situation. And, a lot of it was based off reading body language. I could tell that people felt uncomfortable with the situation or things like that. But then I've also had counselors in situations where I've sat down with them and they didn't know the situation. And I can tell, again, it's the body language where you can tell that these people genuinely want to help you and they want to do everything they can and they want to have an answer for you. But there have been times where I've had counselors that have wanted to give me answers and I've had to explain to them, no, I can't do this because of this. And I can't do this because of this. And I can't do this because of this. And it's like they become frustrated at not being able to help. And I think just one thing that I would recommend is, because I have been led down rabbit holes with no, other side of the tunnel because of this, is one thing I would recommend is maybe just, I think as a DACA student, I would rather hear, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know the situation. Let me investigate it and get back to you with, some concrete stuff, opposed to just somebody who's trying to give me an answer, because I do know that, that the intention is to help. But I think it is a very delicate situation. And, there's a lot of loopholes and a lot of boxes to check. So I think just one recommendation I would make is, it's perfect. I feel like as a, DACA recipient, and just being in the situation, I would feel so comfortable to hear somebody to tell me, you know what, I don't know much about this. let me investigate this. I want to help you, but let me investigate it. And I think that would be, and I think it's perfectly fine to say that. And, you know, just if you're someone who genuinely wants to help, you know, that's, you know, it's okay, you know, to say something, to not be familiar and to still want to help and be able to help.
Yeah, going off with Juan said, I think the way that you show up for your student is very important. So yeah, maybe it is kind of mentioning those things like I don't have all the answers, but for me, it's really about creating that space and checking in with your students. I cannot tell you how many times I have struggled mentally with my own mental health, and not have anyone to be able to talk about it has been sort of the biggest struggle for me. And so creating that safe space for your students and making sure that they know that you're an ally and that you've created this space for them to feel comfortable to come to you and to talk about those things. Because there are places here that I know that I wouldn't feel comfortable going and talking about my experience, because I know that it's not going to matter. It's just going to stay in the room and it's not going to do anything. It's not going to change anything. And so I'd like for the counselors to remember that it is important to show up and check in with your students and to make sure that they're doing okay, because we don't know a lot of the things that we are experiencing that other people can listen, right? And so it's creating a safe space and listening to your students and showing up for them.
I would just say that I completely agree with what both Martha and Juan have said. And just as an example, whenever I was dealing with the whole issue of not knowing whether I would be able to continue with my program, like I said, I had multiple meetings with my teachers, and it's something that they would also, not only was I reaching out to them, because like Juan mentioned, we feel like a burden having to constantly reach out to you. For me, I felt like I was bothering them. And like Juan mentioned, I felt like I was adding more work to them, and it was, I would constantly apologize for it when I did not have to. I was constantly apologizing for it because I felt horrible that I had to put them in that position where they were constantly like doing more, you know. But one thing that helped was their attitude, for sure. And not only did I have to, like, I never had to necessarily reach out to them to get them to say something to me. After a while, they just kind of like started doing it themselves. And as soon as they would find something, they would let me know. And if it was taking a while, they would let me know. And they were constantly telling me, I promise you, I'm doing everything in my power to find this out for you. I have nothing now, but I am contacting, you know, so-and-so and this and that. And at the very beginning, like, they weren't as communicative with me. So I would say communication is extremely important, because at the very beginning, when I first started having these meetings with them, they were not being communicative with me. So I thought, they don't want to help me. They are not doing anything to help me. When in reality they were, I just didn't know it. And then once I find out all of the work that they were truly putting into it, I mean, it meant the absolute world to me, because it made me feel like they wanted me there. It made me feel like they considered me a great student, which is something that as undocumented immigrants, I feel like we kind of like look for, or we want. And so I would definitely say, if you are going to do that research and it's taking you longer, just communicate with them, just get back to them. Even if you have nothing in the moment, just communicate with them and let them know, because that will mean the absolute world to them.
My advice to school counselors or educators about supporting these types of families, and I guess I have a little bit more like specific response to it, especially when it comes down to filling out paperwork and, you know, counselors gathering information. I would say try your best to be patient. I feel like some of these families, most of their lives, if not all their lives, have been living in fear and have a lot of hesitation to open up and give you all of their, like, you know, sensitive details and background information, so that they could try to explain the situation. But a lot of times I've run into some people who don't understand that. They don't understand, you know, why are you so hesitant? Like, we're in a safe space. But you don't understand that, like, some people live with like real trauma about this. There's real fear out there. And so it just takes a little bit, you know, if, you know, somehow just gain their confidence in that meeting and kind of reassure them about where their information is going, and that your meeting is confidential and the details are confidential. I think that just helps set everybody at ease in general.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. You all are amazing, and honestly, it's that advice is absolutely on point. The acknowledgement, right, and the understanding and educating ourselves of the needs and the processes that our students have to go through, so that we facilitate, as it is the complicated life that they have had, so that we can facilitate and help them move forward with more fluidity, the processes. So let's go to a final question. This one would be, what piece of advice would you give to undocumented students in high school and students about to start college that are undocumented or DACA students?
I think one of the most important things that I would say to somebody who was once in my shoes, or whom I was once in their shoes, is the one thing that you really have to, I don't know how to convey or to communicate this as strongly as I feel it, but just to not give up. There will be a lot of days and there will be a lot of times that you're going to hear no. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to say no. There's going to be a lot of doors that are going to close in your face. And unfortunately, that's just part of it right now. But to continue to show that resilience and for us to stand together as, DACA recipients and as undocumented students, and to continue to push forward, I think that's the most important thing that I would tell somebody coming into high school and higher education, that it's possible and that it's out there. Unfortunately, we have to, work a lot harder than our peers and other people, but it's possible. And I think that developing these skills right now in life to continue to persevere despite all the odds that are against you, I think that is going to set you up for life greatly. Not just being able to get past this hurdle right now, but those are skills that you're going to need in life. And for us to be able to, just to find a blessing in everything. For me, I always try to look at the bright side of everything. Right now, I'm learning so many skills, I'm learning so much perseverance, and I know that this is going to pay off. And that's just something that I want to convey to the younger, generations, the generation coming out of high school, is to just fight, keep marching on, because anything is possible. And that is why our parents brought us to this country, is because anything is possible here. And we believe that, and we, we live by that. And that's what you got to do, is you just got to keep pushing forward.
I have a kind of like a mantra about when I'm struggling with things, and I always say it's more about the journey than the destination. But even though that is like the thing that I try to remind myself, it gets hard. I think the thing that I've struggled with the most throughout my journey is the feeling of failure. And so I have really told myself to not be afraid of failure. I know that might sound weird, or that might not work with everyone, and that's okay. But sometimes we're so determined to be perfect, to keep going, to put a face on and smile for everyone. But sometimes there are those moments where we don't feel that well and that we want to give up, and that those struggles are part of what makes us resilient, right? And so not being afraid of making those mistakes, not being afraid of asking for help, not being afraid of that failure, that, I don't need to compare myself to other students. And my journey is very different than from Juan and from Vianney and from Daisy. And that's okay. And so my advice is even though we want to be resilient, to not be afraid about the bad side of it. And that is to make mistakes and to fail.
My piece of advice would be to not be afraid to speak up and stand up for yourself, to ask for questions. I know that a lot of us feel like burdens a lot of the times, right? Because I know that I've been there. Juan mentioned he's been there, Martha. Vianney, same thing. But don't feel bad. We have all the right to be here, and we have worked so hard to be here. Our parents have sacrificed so much to be here, and we should not allow something, as really as silly as being afraid to ask for help to stop us, because we've had to push through so much more. We've had to, overcome so many more obstacles, harder things in life. So speaking up for yourself is the least you can do for yourself, because you've already done so much. Your parents have already done so much. You've already proved that you deserve to be there. You have already made it there. I mean, you've gotten this far. So of course, don't give up and don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, because you are your biggest ally. So don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, because I can guarantee you that even if it's intimidating, our professors may seem intimidating, I'm sure that they will appreciate that, and they will value that and see this as a courageous thing, because not everybody feels like they can do that. So in a way, you're demonstrating like, this is my value, this is what I see in myself, and you are creating, an image of yourself. And I think it's extremely important for you to stand up for yourself, because sometimes like we don't have other people. Of course, we are so fortunate to have Christina, but not everybody's going to have a Christina in their campus or in their life. Not everybody's going to have the community to support them. So you need to be that person for yourself if nobody else is going to be able to. So that's my advice.
So I would say your path is different. Accept that, first of all, come to terms with it. But don't ever accept that there is no path for you in higher education, because there is always a way. And as my peers have said, reach out to resource centers. And if you're not comfortable with that yet, then, turn to online resources that will help you demystify, the college process. But please don't try to do this alone. There's always someone in your corner, and as long as you find that, I think it'll definitely help you stay afloat. And also, I think it helps you get your goals in perspective a lot better. And once you have that process down, you can take that to advisors, to counselors, and they will be able to fit you with the most accessible path for what you want to do. But definitely don't try to do it alone. That's the biggest thing.
Wow, wonderful advice. And so for all our viewers that are still here, I present you our most amazing students at SIU, our DACA students, our go-getters, our inspirers, our leaders. And they're unafraid, they are undocumented, and they are succeeding, and they are an example for us all. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Vianney. Thank you, Daisy, for your contribution, for this space, for sharing yourselves and sharing everything you are, and for letting us just basically bask in your amazingness. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sharing the Dream Conference, for the opportunity to do this with these amazing students. Thank you so much.
Christina, I want to say thank you, and thank you for everybody for listening. Like, just the fact that you guys are here listening to what we have to say, and that you took the time out of your day to be here. It's heartwarming for us on our end too. And we're so thankful to see the magnitude of the movement, and to see that we're moving forward, and that there are people fighting for us. So I wanted to thank everybody that's just even here listening.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you for your attention. And I appreciate you all having us, listening to what we have to say, like Juan said, because this is honestly the way that things start in motion. I know we didn't get to talk about that House bill, but I know things like that, concepts like that, ideas like that, and conferences like this are what start to get the ball rolling, especially for all DACA and undocumented students, and the resources that we can be provided.
Thank you all for listening. It has been a pleasure being here, and I just hope that whatever we have been able to say here is of some help for, and hopefully all of you. Right, but just like we mentioned, please don't give up, keep fighting, because you guys are the future. So sí se puede, right? Como Cristina siempre dice, sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Claro que sí se puede, y ya lo están pudiendo ustedes perfectamente bien. I love you all.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. Before everyone heads out, we do have some closing remarks and some announcements. I do have just, I do want to make a plug for the undocumented student database, so the college advising database that we have on the IACAC website. I'll throw the link in the chat, but as the students mentioned, I think having a community that supports them and knowing that their institution supports them is super important for students, not especially for undocumented students who need sometimes extra support, extra resources, a go-to person. So if your institution is not on the database yet, please add it. You'll have some information in there to add about, a specific point of contact that can address issues for undocumented students. Whether or not your institution provides institutional aid, whether or not your campus is undocu-friendly. So there's a number of things that you can include on there and you will be added on the database. We have a list, but also a map. So the map is I think the easiest thing for students to be able to see and locate different institutions. Our goal is to have as many as possible on there, but it has been a slow progress. There's only 72. And as of this morning, there's only one more that has been added throughout the day. And I know there's quite a few on there from some of you that mentioned your institution earlier this morning in the opening session that are not on there. So please, 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 if your institution is not yet listed on there, please work on adding it in there just so that our students have a more centralized location to find more information about their options when they're applying for college or when they're looking to transfer. Also, before we wrap up, I'm going to hand things over to Jonathan and Alex in just a sec, but don't forget on the conference app, if you are looking for PD hours, you do need to complete the ISB evaluation form and have attended, basically the majority of the conference. And we also have a conference evaluation on there. Somebody asked how you can add your institution. So when you go onto the database, if you look at the top on the link that I shared, it says undocumented guide, map, search, add institution. So when you add your when you click add institution, you'll be prompted to enter all of that information. If later on anything changes, you're always welcome to go back on there and edit that information. And for the PD hours and evaluation, you go back to the conference app. I'll throw the link in there in just a second. But you go in there and then under resources and materials, you'll have a link to both of those. All right, I'm gonna hand things over to Jonathan and Alex, who will help us wrap up the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, I just wanted to do a final shout out to Christina for all the support and advocacy that she provides, and a very, very special shout out to my fellow Salukis who got on the panel today. Your shared experience will foster conversation that will help those coming after you, but will also help us advocates and allies be better at assisting, the hardships and experiences that you all go through. So again, thank you. I know some of you signed off, but I do want to say that, just working in education, know that it's never a burden helping you out. As educators or advocates, we're here to serve students and you're our students. So it's never a burden, it's actually an honor. So ask for help, don't only ask for it, demand it, right? Because again, that's what we're here to do. And then again, those of you who are all here in the conference today, just like our amazing panelists taught us, now it's our turn to go back to our institutions, our organizations, and teach them, right? Share the, everything's going to be shared and recorded, share it with them, invite them for the next conference. This is how we'll be able to create these environments and create these communities, these supporting communities, to be able to assist our students best, right? And then also we'll be moving forward next year in person. I highly encourage that we definitely try to make it in person. And Alex, I'll pass it off to Alex, who will talk a little bit more about that. But again, thank you all for being here today.
Yeah. Again, like Jonathan said, thank you all for being here, taking the time out of your day to learn more about, the undocumented community and how we as professionals can support them. I do want to give a special shout out and thank you to Siu Carbondale. I know this was a long time in the making to try to get it here. Thanks to all the work that Jonathan put in, Christina, and everybody at the Siu Carbondale team. I also want to thank the Sharing the Dream committee itself, from the co-chairs, myself, Jonathan, Sana, and then Daniel, to the committee members. So Christina from SIU, from Nadia with Chicago Scholars, Lupe Flores from NIU, Alicia Funes from East Leiden, Fabi Callis from Northeastern, Myra Lagunas from now at NIU, Dr. Sandy Lopez, NIU, Erica Manzo from Farragut Career Academy, Abel Montoya from ISEG, Rigo Padilla from Solorio, Daniela Torres from Northeastern, and Luis Narvaez from now the Vice Chancellor at City Colleges of Chicago. As Jonathan kind of alluded to, we're trying to bring it back in person. So for next year, in May of 2023, we're going to go back to NIU. We're going to go host there for the 9th annual. Then for the 10th annual, we're going to come back. We're going to go to the University of St. Francis. So it's going to come back to where it started for the 10th anniversary. And then from there, in 2025, we're open, right? We're waiting. You're going to get the announcements later on as we get ready to put out for who wants to host it next. So if you really enjoyed everything that you had today, and you know what, you want your institution to know what the power of, sharing the dream and how much this is going to help your community out, go ahead and put in that host site application. Again, you'll see it through ICAC. They will put it out there and let you know that, hey, host sites are available. Okay. Again, thank you all so much for being here today.